be seen as foreign terror organizations. Would you think about ordering U.S. Special Forces into Mexico to take them out?
Could happen. Stranger things have happened.
Playing pretty coy there. Not that Special Forces have ever been in Mexico. Joining me now, Ned Ryun, author of the book American Leviathan. Hey, Ned. It is pretty good out there right now. Donald Trump, after 24 hours, tough to give him anything but an A grade.
It's phenomenal. Happy second Liberation Day, Jesse, in which Donald Trump, I mean, first of all, that inaugural speech was amazing. I mean, he just sat there and punched them in the face again and again and again over the stupidity and the idiocy that has taken place over the last 8 or 9 years. And they had to sit there and take it. So that was an amazing start to all of it. And then these executive orders, I can't tell which one I'm more in love with, Jesse. There are so many good ones. The only one I quibble with is TikTok, but you know, let's leave that to the side for now. The one on Schedule F, re-implementing Schedule F. A lot of these executive orders, Jesse, deal with bringing back accountability, and who decides is another fundamental question that's answered in these executive orders inside the Article 2 executive branch, which is run by the duly elected president of the United States, which is Donald J. Trump. And he did some executive orders yesterday that I think are going to shape fundamental change inside of our government with Donald Trump, and saying, the one who decides policy, you SES types, you federal employees, I'm the one who decides policy. You will not resist my efforts. And so he re-implemented the Schedule F policy, Jesse, in which he's going to reclassify some of these federal employees that if they touch anything in regards to policy, he has the ability to hire and fire at will, essentially. And he also deals with the SES types, the senior executive service, which they're really the level between the political appointees and a lot of the federal employee, the government workforce. And these SES types are very powerful, and they go from 5 to 1, 5 being the lowest, 1 being the highest. And they run, really, for all intents and purposes, about 75 federal agencies. Donald Trump made it very clear in his executive order, you are actually to implement the policies from the head of the executive branch, which is, of course, Donald J. Trump. So there's a lot of good things that happened yesterday. He is off to an absolute amazing start.
Ned, he appears, from the outside looking in, to have a much harder edge this time, and he appears to be a man who understands that his first 4 years were really, really hobbled from within his own government. Yes. Are you getting that impression?
100%. I mean, this has been a kind of a brutal learning curve for Donald Trump. Again, he shows up in January of 2017 as the great outsider, thinking we're a constitutional republic, and spent the next 4 years fighting his own government. I mean, I would argue the DOJ, the FBI, and the intel community tried to take out the duly elected president of the United States. So he's fighting that constantly. And then the next 4 years of unbelievable political lawfare by, again, the DOJ and the FBI, and I think coordinated by the Biden White House. And so after a punishing 8 years, he has come to a realization of what the real fight is. And so not only did he do those executive orders I just mentioned, he has now officially started DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency, which will be working with OMB, again, to go after this administrative state. He also went after some other things, Jesse, that I thought were phenomenal in dealing with freezing any more federal employee hires, freezing regulations. He also pulled the security clearance of those 51 security intel officials who signed and said this Hunter Biden laptop is actually Russian misinformation. Again, that kind of ties into the fundamental issue of who decides, who's in charge, who actually runs this government of, by, and for the people. And that issue of those 51 intel officials lying to the American people was really because they thought they decided. They thought they were better, not only than the American people, but even more so than the duly elected representative of the American people. So ending weaponization was another executive order. So there were just a lot of phenomenal things that Donald Trump did within not 24 hours, but literally hours of him taking back the White House as the 47th president.
Ned, talk about these tariff threats when it comes specifically to Canada and Mexico. Justin Trudeau's out there. We will fight back. The Mexican president, we can't do this. Why the tariff threat? What does Trump want out of this? Where does this go from here?
Well, first of all, we have to look at it as a negotiating tool in which he is going to use it as the cudgel. If you do not do what I say or come to a more equitable agreement in trade negotiations, I will lower the boom on you in regards to tariffs. But I have to tell you something else, Jesse. Let's not forget how we got away from tariffs funding our federal government. It was at the turn of the 20th century, and the progressives decided they needed this massive administrative state, and tariffs were not going to fund that. So for this massive expansion of the administrative state, they started the federal income tax and the Internal Revenue Service. And Donald Trump, you can kind of see him. He started talking about the External Revenue Service and some of these things right before being sworn in again. I think he's not only thinking this is a leverage to get better trade deals, this might actually be where we want to go more towards in funding our government, because it would shrink the size of government. You can only fund so much government off tariffs, but also be able to cut taxes and return more money to the people and spur more economic growth. So I think there's a lot of different aspects to this tariff discussion that I think are meaningful and worth discussing.
Let's talk about the FBI, Ned. I had a conversation this morning with somebody inside the building, and he said some pretty frightening things to me about how rapidly the FBI is trying to build up walls to prevent, hopefully, incoming director Kash Patel from cleaning things out of the Cheka. How concerned are you about this?
Oh, I think it's going to be full-on political war inside the FBI when Kash Patel is sworn in as director of the FBI. You can see this right now, Jesse. I mean, they said, oh, we shut down the DEI office at FBI. No, you didn't. You move those people out of the DEI and put them in other offices to metastasize the cancerous, woke mind virus. So you can see that they're trying to spread some of this stuff out and hide the resistance, not only in the FBI, but other departments and agencies, which, I've told some of these nominees, you need to go timestamp when these people were moved out of their offices, when they got their GS-15 level 12 or SES qualifications and all of that, and go back and timestamp and say, yeah, we're after November 5th, if you did this, we're going to remove those. We're going to fire you. We're going to return you back to your position. The FBI, to me, I told Trump this, as much as you need someone who is actually going to enforce the law and be a loyalist at the DOJ, times 100 for the FBI. It is a pit of vipers. And it's not just the management of the FBI. I think the entity itself has become thoroughly corrupt. Current FBI agent told me not too long ago, I think it's upwards of 40% of the current field agents have come in under Chris Wray, which tells you in many ways, I think their thinking and approach to everything has been polluted by Chris Wray. So I think Kash Patel is going to have his hands full. He is the man for the hour, though. I think he's got the intelligence. I think he's got the political courage. But I think he's also prepared for a very hard fight to reform the FBI.
Ned, I'm glad people are going to get fired and reforms are going to happen, but who's going to jail? It's not enough to just fire people, resignation. It's not enough unless these communists feel real pain. They will do the same thing the next time they take power again. Are people actually going to go to jail? Does Pam Bondi have that in her?
I would hope that Pam Bondi and Kash Patel both have it within themselves to say, we don't need to maybe send hundreds of people to jail. We need to send dozens to make it very clear that the massive and gross abuse of the trust, quite frankly, the trust that was given to these people to run these powerful institutions, was just absolutely abused and used for political purposes to try and destroy political opponents. And if you do not have, and I don't want to say retribution because it's not, it's accountability. It's actually having consequences for this behavior so that it never happens again. And I think, Jesse, the reason that we saw this political lawfare take place over the last 4 years, you know why? Because nobody actually went to jail for their gross abuse of using a fake dossier to secure 4 FISA warrants. And my concern is if there's not actual consequences for what took place, as you see, if there weren't consequences for the FISA abuse and there's not consequences for this political lawfare, what happens next time will be even worse. And so there has to be some sort of accountability so that people can point to them and say, if you ever do this, you're going to go to jail. You're going to get your security clearance revoked. There's going to be serious consequences for you. So why don't you think really long and hard before you do that?
No doubt. Ned, my brother, as always, thank you. Come back soon. I would thank you for coming to my YouTube channel, but I know how brilliant it is, and I know you love it here. So subscribe and watch. We're going to start really ramping things up and putting some funny stuff, some interesting stuff out there, some collaborations. Either way, my YouTube channel is officially the place to be. So stick around.